Nelson Piquet, a living legend of Formula One. A talented driver, three-time world champion, and now a successful entrepreneur. Well known for his playful personality and his unconventional lifestyle. Also nicknamed the Gypsy, for his choice to live on a boat moored in Monte Carlo, and without a fixed abode. He played famous pranks on sports journalists, making their work difficult. Some curiosities: one of his daughters, the charming Kelly Piquet, is the partner of the current Formula One champion Max Verstappen, while his son Nelsonio unsuccessfully attempted a Formula One career, which ended with the unfortunate episode of the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. He was born in Rio de Janeiro on August 17, 1952, and is the last of the children of Clotilde Piquet and Estacio Goncalves Sotomayor, a doctor and politician. Nelson comes from a wealthy family and inherited his father's passion for tennis, so much so that at just 12 years old, he was considered one of the most promising Brazilian tennis players. Unfortunately, just a couple of years later, Nelson Piquet fell in love with motor racing and, without his father knowing, who was against his passion, he started racing with a kart he had bought in partnership with 3 other friends. He raced under the pseudonym Piquet so as not to be discovered by his father. But when he won the Brazilian championship in 1971 and 1972, he could no longer hide. His father tried to dissuade him by sending him to study in California, but Nelson returned home just a year later. Tensions between the two remained until his father's death in 1974, and Nelson decided to continue racing by taking part in the Formula Super V. On the advice of Emerson Fittipaldi, he left Brazil and moved to Novara, Italy. Racing in Europe was the right step forward for his career, and Piquet made his debut in the European Formula 3 Championship, winning 2 races and taking 3rd place overall, before winning 2 English F3 championships in 1978. An immediate winner. With Ensign he made his debut at the 1978 German Grand Prix, while he took part in 3 other Grand Prix aboard a private McLaren M23. However, he managed to reach an agreement with Bernie Ecclestone to take part in the final race of the season aboard a 3rd Brabham specially fielded for him, at the same time earning himself a job as a regular driver for the following season, taking the place of Elio de Angelis. Piquet did not disappoint expectations, and at the wheel of the Brabham Alfa Romeo he showed off his skills, although the poor competitiveness of the single-seater allowed him to obtain only a 4th place at the Dutch GP. Things improved considerably in 1980, the year in which he climbed onto the podium at the inaugural race in Argentina, while obtaining his first victory in Formula One at the United States Grand Prix West. On the Long Beach circuit, he engaged in a good battle with Alan Jones, but at the end of the year he finished right behind him. 1982, however, started off in style, driving the Brabham BT49. Nelson Piquet won the GPS in Argentina and San Marino, repeating in Germany. And it was from here that his comeback for the championship began again and dragged his rival to play it all in the last race. On the Las Vegas circuit, Piquet obtained 2nd place and thus overtook Carlos Reutemann, only 8th due to tire problems. Nelson Piquet thus became world champion. Champion again, with ups and downs. 1982 was a year of transition for Brabham, struggling with the new BMW turbo engine. The poor reliability of the car weighed heavily on Piquet's results, and the reigning world champion finished the year only 11th. But the following year, the Brazilian redeemed himself. He immediately returned to victory at the wheel of the new BT52, the arrow-shaped car that had been winning since the first race of the '83 season. Even though in the central phase of the championship, it was Prost and Arnoux who called the shots, Piquet returned to the fight, for the title by winning both the Italian and European GPS. He showed up at the last race in South Africa with a clear objective to win the race to take the title. He started well and dominated the first part of the Grand Prix, imposing his own pace. Then Arnoux and Prost went out of the picture and the Brazilian would have been enough to get his hands on the title. Even if he finished fourth, he lifted his foot, spared the car and let his teammate Patrese win, while he crossed the finish line third, which was enough to become Formula One world champion for the second time in his career. In 1984, the Brazilian achieved 9 pole positions, but the season was dominated by McLaren. Tag Porsche and Piquet had to settle for a few sporadic appearances on the top step of the podium, such as in Canada and the United States, while in 1985 he only did so in France. His time in Brabham ended like this. It was time for a new adventure at Williams. The third title with Williams. 1986 saw Nelson Piquet reach an agreement with Frank Williams to race with his team. However, the Englishman had a serious accident and was away from the track for a long time. So the team was managed by Patrick Head, who favoured a tie between Nelson and the Englishman Nigel Mansell, unleashing a sort of internal struggle that prevented the team from capitalising on its potential. At the end of that year, Piquet finished third in the championship. Despite the 4 victories he had achieved during the year, things went much better. In 1987, the Williams FW11B dominated the championship and Piquet had to deal only with his teammate Mansell. The Brazilian began the year with a second place in Brazil. Then in the trials for the San Marino GP, he was involved in a serious accident that saw him crash at the Tamburello curve. He emerged from the car unharmed, but the doctors advised him not to take part in the race. That crash left him with psychological aftereffects, often causing him insomnia. His performances suffer, but he is still in the fight for the title. With Mansell out of the game due to an accident at Suzuka, forced to miss the last 2 races, Piquet still manages to take home his 3rd world title. The decline. The 3-time world champion moves to Lotus in 1988, where he stays for 2 seasons. The car is not competitive and Piquet remains far from victory, thus deciding to give in to the court of Benetton in 1990. Nelson does not give up and at the end of the year he obtains 2 consecutive successes in Japan and Australia, finishing 3rd in the World Championship. The 1991 season is less positive where Nelson Piquet only wins at the Canadian GP, taking advantage of Mansell's retirement with just 2 corners to go. At the end of that year he meets Michael Schumacher on his path, who joined the team in place of Moreno. With the Enstone team fully focused on the young German and without any attractive offers from other teams, Nelson Piquet announces his retirement from Formula One and heads overseas towards the Indianapolis 500 during the trials of the Great American Classic. Piquet violently crashes into the wall and suffers serious injuries to his legs that make him say goodbye to his dream of glory. He tries again a year later, but without luck, 13th in trials and retired from the race after about 20 laps due to a technical problem. The last races, when he has to hold down the gas, he doesn't hold back, and so Piquet takes part in 2 editions of the 24 Hours of Le Mans aboard a McLaren F1 GTR, as well as several other Brazilian endurance races, up to the 24 Hours of Nürburgring and the 24 Hours of Spa-Francorchamps. His last race was in 2006, when he took to the track alongside his son, Nelson Piquet Jr. aboard an Aston Martin DBR9. That was the last career victory for the Brazilian who, once out of the car, announced his definitive retirement, declaring, "Racing is no longer for me."